Okay, since it's past the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to go ahead and open the meeting. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte and the governing body of all other special assessment and taxing districts for which said board so acts is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned time. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. And since Supervisor McNamer's not here, I'm going to lead the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are there any new employees to introduce? Okay, seeing no new employees, we'll go on. County Council, are there any reportable actions from closed session?
Not today.
Okay. Okay, at this point, are there any deletions, corrections, or additions from board members to the agenda at this time? In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
There is a urgency item. It's a letter of a legislative letter, and it's regarding solar energy in opposition to some legislation passed.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to add it to the agenda.
I so moved.
Been moved to second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any public comments? Okay. Jeremy, could you pull the vote?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes. Okay. At this point, we're going to hear brief reports and announcements from board members related to programs, projects, travels, and committees. Supervisor Finnegan, would you like to start?
Sure. Pretty uneventful couple weeks. Started off with the first 5 Children and Families Commission board meeting. Well attended. Got an update on what's been going on with all the vistas and the different projects throughout the community, and talking about getting together and doing some planning for what we want to do in the future. Then I went to the Regional Council of Rural Counties, which I guess is now the Rural Counties Association. They changed their name. I haven't quite got used to it. The main topic of discussion at that point in time was the budget. There is, as you all well know, I'm sure, an $8 billion structural deficit that's going to happen every single year until something is done. And then there's an additional $8 billion that showed up that was less than what the revenue projections were. So that's a $16 billion problem that they were trying to address. And of course they did address it, and the reason they addressed it is because if they didn't pass a budget on that last Friday, they would not continue to get paid. So it wasn't so much, and then even though the budget was passed, the next 2 weeks and perhaps up to 90 days, you're going to see a flurry of what they call trailer bills that actually interpret how that budget is going to be implemented. So hopefully most of those will take place this week and within the next couple of weeks. A couple of things to notice on that, or take notice of, was the redevelopment monies, the pass-through. That had been scored to go to schools and would not be coming back to counties. It would have meant a couple $100,000, I think, to us, and about $250 million to counties. Anyway, that the governor said, no, I don't want to see that. That was not the intent. We definitely need not to hurt counties, which is nice to know that the governor still thinks that. And so that was pulled out. But you're going to see all kinds of stuff going on. The bottom line is this is the first time in the history of the legislature that there was no conference on the budget. It is majority budget. And when you don't have a conference, then you usually don't have compromise, which means that somebody's going to get hurt. And we're trying to make sure, or CSAC's trying to make sure that counties are not the ones that will get hurt. So I'm not going to go through, there's 2 volumes of supplemental language and bills that we covered at RCRC, and it's all subject to change. So as things come up, we'll take opposed positions or favorable positions. Other than that, I then came back and had an airport JPA meeting, good meeting. Had some schematics for what the new airport terminal is going to look like. We've set up, there is a timeline, I think later on this month, there's going to be a meeting and talk about colors, talk about materials and things like that. But I believe everybody's going to be very pleased when those drawings come out. So for those that said been saying that nothing's been going on at the airport, and for us that have been saying that a lot's been going on at the airport, we're going to be the ones that we're telling the truth. So that's about it.
All right, thank you. Supervisor McClure.
Yes, thank you. I attended a Coastal Commission meeting where there was considerable discussion on finding ways to streamline the LCP process, and I think that that's moving forward. There is going to be a meeting in December with both CSAC and RCRC on how to effectively get LCPs together. There was actually a community that had been working for 8 years on their LCP, and it had a 1-year extension added to it. It was automatic, and for the first time the discussion became, why is this automatic? So I see great movement starting to happen there, so I'm hopeful. The commission also agreed that in September, when the meeting is in the north, it has always been Humboldt County. Last year we got them to come to Del Norte County for the first time in 40 years. And since I also represent Mendocino County, I said you need to go to Mendocino County, to Fort Bragg, because we're different than the rest of the coast. And they agreed. So that, I believe, is an important step in letting them learn who we are in the north, because we're not anything close to San Diego, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. The RPA, the Redwood Park Association, in partnership with Save the Redwoods League, is attempting to figure out a plan to keep the Mill Creek acquisition open on weekends, because that's slated to be closed. And so we're frantically trying to have a plan and develop partnerships that will allow the gates to be open on the weekends as they've been in the past, because the Mill Creek Advisory would like to see that stay open. And I think that that's one of our priorities as the Board of Supervisors, that we want to keep access open. Estimated that it's about a $20,000 bill, and to be able to keep it open and manage volunteers, and that covers the cost of the garbage and the porta potties and that kind of thing. So we have to, as a community, I believe, figure that out, because there are a number of people who use that backcountry with the equestrians and hikers and mountain bikers. So that's, I believe we're on track. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow night with the two bodies and hopefully hammer out some kind of solution that can keep Mill Creek open. The Historical Society met and we talked about Front Street. We did the research on Front Street. Front Street was first recognized in the American Herald Volume 1, paper number 3, was the first time that Front Street was identified as Front Street, with businesses advertising to be on the front and H and that kind of thing. For a short period of time in the 30s, Front Street was attempted to be changed to Ocean View Drive, I think. And it was embraced by some and rejected by many. And never in any advertisement research could we find that it was ever referred to as Ocean Front. It was always referred to as Front Street. And the Historical Society unanimously voted to urge the city to keep the name of Front Street rather than Tsunami Way. And I can tell you that I polled 4 coastal commissioners separately from one another, saying, we have a Front Street and they're considering renaming it Tsunami Way. What do you think? And all 4 said, wow, that sounds like a disastrous name. I'm not sure I would want to travel down a Tsunami Way. So I'm hoping that it stays Front Street. And then on Sunday, Sunday, I went out to the Talawa Dunes to look at the restoration project of the pulling of the European grass, and it was remarkable. That 14 acres had so many rare species on it at this point that you could barely walk in that area, and it has made a remarkable difference. There was a woman that had come up from Andrea, was her name, that had come up from Humboldt County, that's an expert on dune restoration, and talked about the significance of what's called the foredune, which is the dune that is totally covered with the grass. And what's happening with the foredune is that when the foredune is covered with grass, it doesn't move to the back dunes to build where you need the dunes. And it makes the beach narrower, and it doesn't allow for the sand to move. And then in a tsunami incident, it's detrimental. And I discussed with her the possibility of why aren't we looking at a mechanical approach to getting rid of some of this dune grass. And she was in support that could be a possibility, that you could actually mechanically move it instead of attempting to do it volunteers and shovels, because it's going to take forever to get that done. And
Use ATVs. Drive right over that stuff, kick it out.
it needs to be a little more systematic than that. But there were over 50 people on this walk, which I thought was a really big showing of people that have interest in that area. And I think that maybe with the Coastal Conservancy, there's some possibility that we could maybe take a more aggressive way to move out some of that dune grass. And with the most recent ocean report, recognizing that the foredune is the important dune to move for sea level rise and for any event that might come forward, it might be something that we could do collectively and find a good solution. So it was a very interesting day. And that's about it, I think.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, I think David's idea was good. I think it'd move the dune too, not only the grass, but you can move it back farther too. Well, I went to the ribbon cutting at the Smith River School for their new playground. Great facility, well attended. Supervisor Sullivan and Supervisor McNamer were there, along with CAO Serena, along with quite a few other people. It's a neat facility. I filled in for somebody on the Redwood Coast Transit Authority, Martha, yeah. There's going to be some budget cuts there that people aren't going to be too happy with. Some services are going to be restricted, although I think that Mr. Wall did a pretty good job of finding those routes that were not being utilized to their fullest, to try help with the budget issues. And I don't think it's going to be that big of an impact, but we will soon see. I went to the meeting at the fire department about the dispatch services. CAL FIRE put on a presentation. They may be taking over they put a proposal in to take over the dispatch services instead of what we do in Del Norte County. It was certainly interesting to find out the amount of equipment that they do have and their dispatch techniques. It was very interesting. I also went to Sacramento to Sustainable Forest Action Coalition, which I was just appointed to last meeting. Very, very good meeting. Involves 18 counties, I think, in California. There's also a couple of counties in Oregon that participate, and one in Colorado, I believe, which they're having a couple of minor fires back there that are scooting around. But anyway, we started out with the main focus being on secure rural schools money and the impacts, and letting these representatives from, we had representatives from Feinstein's office, Congressman Herder's office, Congressman Costa's office, Denham's office. Congressman McClintock was there along with a representative, and Congressman Lundgren's office. So we were able to let them know what the impacts are and what the agreements were in the beginning as far as the secure rural schools monies. We also discussed catastrophic fire issues. that they are seeing in Colorado right now and Arizona. It's just a matter of time before we're impacted with that also. Also discussed the National Environmental Policy Act, stewardship contracting, Environmental Protection Agency, and travel management plans, which we've been involved with quite a little bit here. But a great meeting. Jessica Hartzell, who is in Senator Feinstein's office, I got a few minutes to talk to her, with her personally. She's going to be here next month. So it was a great contact, you know, to be able to contact these people and let them know, you know, it's not like Sacramento. This rural communities have different needs, and what they do to us certainly can have great impact on us that they may not even feel. So I think it was a great meeting, and things went pretty well. They seem to be very, very receptive. And like I said, with Jessica coming up soon, we'll get an opportunity to give her our message. I did have a solid waste agenda review, which that meeting will be at 3 o'clock today. Had a meeting with Tom Cochran, who is on the WIB board, which is the Workforce Investment Board of Norte. I think I've discussed this at other meetings, that there was kind of a reorganization of how the WIB makeup was going to be. They were reducing numbers. So Tom is a longtime member, and I wanted to get some input from him on some of the members that were going to be appointed, because he had much greater knowledge than I did. I've only been on for about a year. So there's quite a few members, so it's hard to get to know everybody and know where they stand. So even though there weren't that many, well, actually there weren't any controversies on who was appointed to these members, because we are still short. We are still short a few, and both Ron Sandler and Tom Cochran were reappointed to the WIB board. So I was glad to see that. But there's still, there's still some openings. There's still an at-large opening for any county. There's some appointments. We're 3 short in organized labor, and I think there was one more spot, but I don't see it here. Anyway, so if you have any interest in any of those, you need to have your application in with a nomination letter by July the 13th, I believe. I had a 1.5 by 2 with State and National Parks. Supervisor Sullivan was unable to attend, but County Council showed up about halfway through the meeting, so that was kind of nice. And we had some discussions. I asked about the acquisition in Humboldt County. Grizzly Creek, Humboldt County put in an application and I guess was accepted to manage Grizzly Creek State Park, along with some help from Save the Redwoods League. So I asked for some information on to see if Del Norte County may be eligible to take over acquisition, the Mill Creek acquisition. There's also interest in opening the park up. Mr. Bomke said that he would allow the park to be opened up if he had enough volunteers. So if he could get a volunteer group that would be there to open and close the gate, make sure the last car had left, all those kind of things, that we may be able to keep that park open without going through the whole process. Although I'd like to see what agreement, Mr. Bomke said he would send me the agreement that Humboldt County had with Grizzly Creek, and we could look that over and see if that isn't something that maybe we could get some help from another agency, Save the Redwoods League, maybe National Parks, maybe somebody else could kick in some funds and maybe we could do some work there. So it was just thought, and hopefully you'll get that to me. And as I mentioned, we did have the Norte meeting was in Anderson, and we went through all these groups, appointed everybody, so we will have a quorum at the next meeting in July. And as David said, we had a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority. You know, I can't say enough about Van Air. The process that they have brought us along with, and the renderings that they've got for the airport terminal itself, and the meticulous detail that they have been planning as far as the infrastructure from start to finish has just been, I think it's just been great, and I do think that everybody will enjoy seeing what the concepts look like. So that was it for me.
All right. Thank you. Okay, I also attended the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new playground equipment out in Smith River School. It was really well attended and a great event, and I think a nice kickoff event to what eventually will be the Smith River Gymnasium built out there. So it's exciting to see some new stuff come, and especially you know, as you pay your property taxes and you pay the assessment for the bond, it's nice to see some structural stuff start to come to fruition out there. Also attended the presentation on the CAL FIRE dispatch. The different fire districts, basically, they were making a presentation to take over dispatch. It was an interesting presentation. Attended a gender review, and actually was not in town. I was at an annual meeting for my company up in Bend the last 4 days of last week. Had numerous calls and conversations regarding Center Coast, the regionalization. So we did send a letter out last week, and a couple things locally. If you've driven down the railroad road, you can see that they're widening the road out, and the road department's doing a pretty good job with that. And now that they have some nice weather, they can eventually get that thing fixed. And then you'll notice on our, for those of you watching, we've changed over our video now. It's being done through basically a YouTube or Ustream, and we're available on Facebook. So I know everyone was anxious for that. So there also additionally, and there are some savings with that for the county to be able to do it that way. So want to be as transparent as possible, but also can we do it economically? It is ironic though on the dunes thing that the beach grass is there because state parks put it there to keep the dunes from moving. That's my understanding.
The grass was planted by the pioneer families when they moved.
Oh, got it. Okay, I stand corrected. Okay, so at this point, we'll go to a brief report from CAO.
Primarily, we've been working on putting together the recommended budget and having some additional meetings as we get down to presenting the recommended budget to the board today, and have also been reviewing the work on manual arts fire rehab, which is almost completed. It'll be back to a point where it can be used for uses that we've had, which is primarily storage at this point. Hopefully someday we'll be able to use that as space once we get some ADA compliance and some money to be able to rehab the rest of it. I did meet with a community group, and it was regarding the recreation possibilities in Smith River. I think people are aware that administration is also the recreation department, and John Horner's our coordinator. I met with the group with John and Neil Lopez, and I'll be attending a public meeting along with Supervisor Sullivan, I believe, on Friday evening, primarily to answer questions and hear any concerns, issues, or plans that the community might have for some recreation possibilities. Primarily the issues are commuting to Crescent City, where we're centralized for our departments because our facilities here and our programs are in Crescent City, and it does require the outlying communities to travel to participate, whether they be in youth or adults. So hopefully that will result in some solutions if it meets their needs, and trying to come up with some ideas for funding, because funding drives what programs we can provide. We've been also dealing with the daily issues that come up with other offices and require administration's involvement, and we will be dealing with employee negotiations with a couple of different groups coming up this week, and then getting immediately into reviewing the trailer bills that did come out last night. There was about a half inch of documents that came out at about 5 o'clock last night, and reviewed some of those to see what impacts we might have. But we'll be going through those, and the departments will be going through those, and we'll see how that affects how we approach the final budget, which the board will probably be seeing in September again this year.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Okay, at this point, since we're past the timed item of public comment, I'm going to go ahead and open up public comment. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and please give your name for the record. Any public comment?
Doreen Wells, Local Planning Council for Child Care and Development, and I do have a resolution that's set before you, but I want to read to you, there were some changes that were made recently between the governor and legislation, but still not to the extent that we would desire. And I want to just read with you that an ECE Senate resolution that was what they said quietly adopted. Whereas research shows that high-quality early childhood education programs benefit a child during his or her formative years, and whereas a high-quality early childhood education program helps build a child's social skills and self-confidence and gives a child a foundation of knowledge needed to succeed in kindergarten and beyond. And whereas children in low-income families typically enter kindergarten more than 1 year behind the national average in pre-reading and language skills. And whereas kindergartners who enter school behind are likely to remain behind as they move through the education system. And whereas high-quality preschool generates about $7 for every $1 spent, yielding government savings on welfare, education, and criminal justice. And whereas 85% of children's core brain structure is developed by 4 years of age, providing the foundation for their future health, academic success, and social and emotional well-being. And whereas studies show that children who have attended early childhood education programs are more likely to read proficiently by the 3rd grade, graduate from high school, and pursue higher education, and are less likely to be held back, placed in special education, or become involved in crime. And whereas a recent study by the RAND Corporation shows that every dollar invested in high-quality preschool, the public saves more than double that amount in reduced special education needs, crime prevention, and other costs. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the State of California that the Senate proclaims the importance of early childhood education every year, and be it further resolved that the Senate promote early childhood programs with appropriate and meaningful activities that will educate the people of California about the value of preschool and other early childhood education programs, that the senators encourage their constituents to enroll their children in such programs, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Senate transmit copies of this resolution to the author for appropriate distribution. I unfortunately didn't make copies for everybody because I printed this very quickly. It just came out. But I will leave a copy with her. I'm just glad that they're acknowledging that, even though there's still going to be quite a bit of cuts. It's been reduced at least to $452 million.
Doreen, I was going to put the invitation out because the last time we were kind of, it was just public comment period, but if you'd like to do an actual presentation on it, just let Jay know, and we can put it on a future agenda for it too. I mean, beyond just the 3-minute. Yeah, absolutely.
I would just like to comment that years ago when I was a Head Start teacher, we had to go in front of a Senate committee that wanted to get rid of Head Start, and one of the arguments was, well, I can't tell the difference in 4th grade between a kid who's been in Head Start and a kid who hasn't. And I said, that's the point, that we can catch them up and get them equal to their peers. And that's what early childhood education does.
Absolutely.
So thanks for your commitment and work for that.
Thank you.
So Doreen, are you looking to take that resolution in lieu of what's proposed on?
No, because we still want to make sure that we are opposing the governor's cuts. We could attach it. But the cuts are, and actually I do have some things on here that actually show there are several, there's only a couple that he has included.
Okay, well, and that's, I guess, will be discussed later.
Okay, so I will just give it to Jeremy.
All right. Thanks, Doreen.
Thanks so much.
Any other public comment?
My name is Bruce Barber. I reside in Gasky. I have some handouts.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate if you take the time to review these after the meeting. Two handouts. One is a copy of a Coastal Voices that I had published in a triplicate. The other is a document that I was able to secure. I read a brief article in the triplicate that talked about a special species refuge here in Del Norte County, and my first reaction was, wait a minute, this was a great concern of mine, and I'll tell you why. If we can go back in a brief history of California, for example, under the umbrella of saving a spotted owl or old redwood forest, environmentalists went through a process that had a very destroying effect on the economy of this county. There was a time when there was many timber mills. Everybody here that's been here several generations knew people that expected to work for the mills. And under the umbrella of saving the spotted owl, it had a devastating effect on the economy of this county. Another example of an umbrella would be, and it would have been nice then if someone had said, wait a minute, spotted owl, 50 years later, this economy is destroyed. Another example would be back several decades ago, people thought there wasn't access to the coast, and the rich were prohibiting the public. So under the umbrella of public access, next thing you know, we have a coastal commission, and that has grown into a monster. No disrespect. I hope you're going to be our ally. And now people that own property here that aren't on the coast but set back from the coast have to jump through hoops to develop their own private property. We're in negotiations to expand the airport, and we're talking about 4-to-1 ratios, 2-to-1 ratios. It's ridiculous. There shouldn't be any ratios over wetlands. But that's what we've done under the umbrella of public access. We now have this monster. And it would have been nice if back many decades ago someone would have said, wait a minute, you're going to destroy private property rights. Well, when I read this article, and same with coho salmon, you know, and saving the coho salmon Smith River, and there's going to be an attack on the farming in Smith River, I promise. So when I read this article, I was concerned. It took a lot of effort to get a hold of this. It's a lengthy document. I hope you take the time to peruse through it. But this is the umbrella of climate change. And I'm saying right now, wait a minute. Before they enact this, we better be careful, because this will have a devastating effect on private property. I'll just read one sentence out of the abstract. The Klamath-Siskiyou ecoregion has been a refuge for species during past climate change, but current anthropogenic stressors are likely compromising its effectiveness. Does anyone here know what an anthropogenic stressor is? It's man. And basically what this document says is we need to eliminate man from these areas. And it even says in this document it's not enough for the wilderness area, it's not enough for the national parks. They've got specific areas where fungus and salamanders are living, and if the climate change takes place, which they blame totally on man, if climate change takes place, it's going to have a negative effect on these people. And they specifically mentioned the Middle Fork of the Smith River and the Klamath River. And I really doubt if this thing was enacted, down the road we'll be able to do rafting, hiking, fishing, jet boat rides. It can have a negative effect. So this is my opportunity to stand up and say, wait a minute, let's be familiar with this. And before this is enacted, I'd like to be able to have invoice or a voice into it.
Okay. All right. Mr. Barber, you're out of time. I appreciate you coming. I know you sent me an email, and I appreciate you coming, because that's what public comment is for, and to make the board aware of the issues that may just, there's so many things that come at us. Sometimes it's important to bring some stuff to the attention. I know the board on the coho salmon thing, for example, we've taken a pretty adamant stance that you know, Mr. King's article basically shouldn't be considered scientific fact in the process. So as an example of one, but I appreciate you using the public comment period for it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Thanks. Any other public comment?
Good morning. I'm Roger Getlin. I I'd like to take this opportunity to underscore Mr. Barber's comments, and I'd like to thank him for bringing this matter to the community's attention. On first glance, when I read this small filler in the triplicate, my curiosity was aroused. I thought, how nice, a part of Del Norte County is being recognized for its special characteristics. Mr. Barber's letter was a wake-up call. I was able to access this natural journals, area journals, which you have in front of you right here. It's a sobering look at an agenda-driven group whose goal it is to move private lands under a government umbrella, which will cause great harm to our economy. You should read this propaganda. It's daunting. The data is not scientifically supported. The changing climate theory is just that. It's a theory, and it's fraught with misconceptions, misunderstandings, and manipulations of truth. I also say, wait a minute. What are we allowing to happen here in Del Norte County? This type of recognition will only serve to accomplish one goal. If the board is lured into allowing special recognition for the Klamath-Siskiyou region, somebody's private property rights are going to be compromised. This board cannot allow any more property to fall under the control that would deprive the majority of us access to designated areas. Supervisor Henningsen, you were 100% right in your recent Coastal Voices piece, which identified the continuing problem of Del Norte County losing control of its property tax base by the sale and transfer of privately held lands into government interests. This trend is more than problematic. It could doom Del Norte County. Indeed, every property owner has the right to sell his or her land to whomever he or she pleases to, including federal or state government interests. That right is constitutionally guaranteed and should not be compromised. However, this board should ponder how to reverse this current trend by demanding government interests, which pays no property taxes on its acquisitions, sell a like amount of acreage back to the public so no tax base is lost. Failure to acknowledge this huge problem now, Del Norte County will not only lose critical property tax revenues, but may find itself in an economically unsustainable predicament. I say to you, wait a minute. Let's take a look at this recognition just a little bit closer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gatlin. Any other public comment? It's just a public comment session. Okay. Okay. It'd be anything that's not listed on the agenda. Go ahead, your clock started, so go ahead and...
Okay. I wanted to talk about, I'm going to wait, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, at this point, I'm going to close public comment, and we're going to go on to an item that was timed for 10:30, which is a presentation from the 4-H Extension Office regarding an overview of the UC Extension Program, what services they have delivered to Del Norte County, including horticulture, the new Klamath Outreach Program, and the first ever 4-H college tour.
Whoops.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Giroux. I'm the Farm and Community Development Advisor for Humboldt and Del Norte counties. I have been in the Eureka office for many years now and done a fair amount of work up here in Del Norte County. In the horticulture arena, myself and UC Davis specialist Becky Westerdahl have been coming up to work with the Easter lily growers for over 20 years. We have a test plot that is planted every October and dug every June, July, and we evaluate alternative controls of the nematode and fungus problems that Easter lilies are prone to. We've recently done more work with alternative pesticides, and pesticides do come from the natural world as well. We work with fungus derivatives that attack nematodes. We've been working with various natural toxins that can harm the nematodes, and quite a few other things that are more natural than the synthetic pesticides. We've had some success with these. We've published papers in international peer-reviewed journals, and I was fortunate to be able to deliver one of those papers at an international meeting a year ago, August. So I think we've had some benefits to the Easter lily industry, and we will continue to do so. That funding comes almost 100% from UC Davis, where I work, but I'm located in Humboldt County, and there's quite a bit of funds that have gone into that research. In Del Norte, I've also worked with some of your local agencies on public community gardens and other horticultural concerns that people have. I take a lot of phone calls from Del Norte County, including marketing, farmers market access. There's some new farmers in Humboldt that are actually coming to your Crescent City farmers markets, and I work with them on helping them decide which crops are economic for them. And several people, more than several, have come to our workshops in Eureka. We always advertise whatever public workshops we're doing. Unfortunately, we can't replicate all of them up here, but we do have your residents come down. One of the more interesting ones is a program I've been working on with farm and ranch succession. As the baby boomers retire and pass away, a lot of property is going to change hands in this country. And there are not a lot of people wanting to get into farming and dairying and Easter lily growing. It's very expensive to enter agriculture, even if you own the land. It's even more problematic if you're leasing or trying to get access to land. So we've been working with landowners on estate planning, succession planning, transition planning, business planning. It's really a very complex topic and very overwhelming for families. There's a lot of considerations that they have to go through on what to do with their farms and land for the future generations. We also have business planning workshops for the young people to figure out how they can enter agriculture. There's actually a lot of young people that do want to farm. They are starting out with small pieces, an acre to 2 to 5, and exploring how they can be profitable self-employed farmers. In Klamath, recently, as of last fall, I received a grant from the federal government called the Federally Recognized Tribe Extension Program. Humboldt and Del Norte counties have not had this grant, and there are 35 sites around the nation. So we're very delighted to be able to participate in this federal program. Most of the funds are going to hiring a half-time staff person, Holly Henscher, who is Native American and works with the tribal members. We've been helpful with a community garden in Klamath Glen, and we're working with the 4-H program to make sure that youth are involved in that. I've also been working with the charter school in Klamath, and this is where that first time ever college tour comes in. We were able to take through this grant 7 kids on a 5-day college tour. Many of these kids had never been south of Eureka, and to take them down to UC Santa Cruz, Davis, Berkeley, Chico, Sacramento State, Shasta College, Cabrillo College, we are hoping to incentivize them to keep their grades up and be able to attend college. So that was a really great experience, and the grant helped a lot, but also we stayed at Granges and 4-H offices where we slept on the floor, and we're able to give them a really great experience. We're trying to get a new 4-H club started in Klamath. There hasn't been one there for quite a few years. When we had our public community meeting trying to get volunteers, we had a few grandmothers there that had been in 4-H or as leaders many years ago, so that was kind of fun. I'm also on the Council Resource Conservation and Development Council, which Jerry sits on as well. And that's a 3-county council. And besides the resource conservation, the D stands for development. And so we're working on economic development programs. And one of the things I've been doing is an ag and nature tourism. We've created a map. We've got started with the Humboldt County map. We want to get the Trinity and Del Norte County events and venues on there. we're not trying to duplicate state park, national maps. Those trail accesses and all that are quite accessible. What we're trying to do is help landowners develop new ag and nature tourism venues. So if they want to start like a trail or a photography group or some kind of access to lands that tourists really don't have access to, and it would be an economic help to the landowners to be able to charge the public. Typically, if a bus of tourists comes through an area, everyone who gets off the bus pays the landowner $10. So if you have 30 tourists get off and have a picnic or lead a nature hike or such, it can really help landowners with a little bit of revenue. Another project that Jackie Bennett is the 4-H staff person here in Del Norte, and we've been doing the Master Food Preserver program in Humboldt. It's a brand new program, and Jackie wants to do it up here in Del Norte, so I'll be helping her with that. And home food preservation is not a new thing, but young people want to learn how to do home food preservation, and it's actually a really great thing for gardeners to know, because you end up with a lot of food, and then how do you keep it through the winter? It's also part of just sustainable agriculture and sustainable food systems. So it's a really popular program, and we have 20 volunteers now in Humboldt, and we'll get some of them to come up and help the new program here. So I think that's about it. If you had any questions or...
Any questions for supervisors? Great. Oh,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for the presentation. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board.
I would ask that you pull number 12 for further discussion.
Okay, we will go ahead and pull that. Are you amending the motion then to do that?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other items from board members? Okay, Jeremy, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, so let's go to item 12, which was
Okay.
pulled.
The reason I had this pulled is I think my record has shown that I am probably one of the greatest advocates for early childhood development and champion of the children and programs for children, whether it's through First Five or the CARES program or you name it, all the way down the line, including advocating at the state level for funding. This resolution, however, is not totally accurate because some of the changes that were made from the May revise, it reflects an opposition to the Browns' proposed May revise. That's already been negotiated through, and it has a very negative connotation. This governor, this administration has been very attentive to Del Norte County. At a recent reception, the governor came up to me and said, so, Cal works, and I think I reported this out before, and your county is 24%, state average is 11%. What's the deal? What's going on up in Del Norte? Well, that led to one of his budget proposals now having an exemption for Cal Works for counties just like Del Norte. So he pays attention to what goes on here. I think that we supported early on having those reductions cut, if you will, that did result in not having as much removed from some of these programs that are extremely vital. But I cannot support and would urge this current resolution that starts off in opposition to Governor Brown. We don't need to have a resolution in opposition to this governor because it is going to stick on his lips the next time he says Del Norte County. What we need to do is, if we feel strongly that you want to support the legislature's version, which is the other part of this, we can certainly do that. We can have a resolution urging the governor to agree with the Senate resolution that you just read, which I think was fantastic. But I guess I'm asking you to pull this and bring forth something in a positive vein that Del Norte County is suggesting line up with our priorities, that is also a priority of the Senate, which is his party's rather than this, I cannot support this particular one that starts off saying I oppose the governor.
Yeah, I think David makes a good point, not just with this one, but, it's all too often, I think, that we just oppose cuts, but we don't propose a solution, or we don't propose something in place of that, and it's like we don't want to work proactively to find an area of agreement, and that we, if you're not part of the solution, you're certainly part of the problem. So I think, along those lines, not just this particular resolution, and basically apologize for not being the first one to want to withdraw it. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We need to find ways to help, not hinder, not to make us look like we're just going to oppose every budget cut that's put forward.
Dory?
I agree. I like to see something positive as well. However, according to, if you looked at this legislative alert that I attached to the resolution, there's only 2 items that he actually has changed. Everything else still remains. So in here it says 500 and, I got too many papers.
517.
517. So it's been reduced to 452 million in cuts. So it's still a huge amount. I'd be willing to work with you to make it more positive, or I could work with Chris or someone else to make it more positive, but the urgency is critical for this week because he does, he's getting ready to sign it. And so it's still proposing for all child development programs to go to county welfare departments, except for state preschool, so that's everything is going to go to them. So they're pulling all the funding, except for state preschool, out of California Department of Education. What they've said at the Child Development Division, that they've actually told the governor, showed him what research has found, and he's basically ignored research. And he's just looking at it as childcare, not really looking at it as an educational component for early, for children before age 5 entering school. So can we work on this and try to get it done quickly? I was hoping to be able to fax it off to the governor.
Well, if we're going to amend we'd have to do it at this meeting, because otherwise we don't have a meeting,
Right.
until the second week in July. I'll entertain some suggestion or motion or something from board members.
We can change the title.
I mean,
I don't know how
one of the
this all-
whereases you have is the Board of Supervisors strongly supports the legislature's version of the budget passed on June 15th, AB 1464. That is what is before him now. It's not the May revise.
Okay.
If you want to reference this, the Senate resolution that you just did, I think that's great.
Okay.
But the governor's proposed budget is not what's in play.
Right.
And that needs not to be the focus to the legislature. They're the ones that are going to be voting on it. Obviously, the governor can blue pencil stuff, and that's where, quite frankly, some of the behind-the-scenes lobbying has to continue to take place.
Okay. I'll
But,
take that as the resolution.
If there's, somebody's got to, it's hard to write these on the fly.
It'd take me a minute, but I can help. It takes more than...
How about we just put this off till the end of the meeting, and we'll see if we can scratch something out with
Okay.
and maybe you can do the same thing and
Yeah, I'll
do a
work
few
over here.
lines and incorporate the Senate resolution for reference.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and table
Okay.
this to the end of the meeting then.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. And going on to the budget transfers. I'll entertain a motion on any of the budget transfer items.
Move to approve budget transfers 06, 04, 5, 6, and 7 as items 14 through 17 on the agenda.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment on the budget transfer specifically? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. Jeremy, could you please poll the vote?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, we're going to go on to item 20, under general government, approve and adopt the attached sanitary sewer system management plan as requested by the Deputy Director of Engineering and Road Division. Tina, if you...
That was a nice light read.
That was. It's good to know where all our sewers going.
Following the state's mandates in this regard and taking care to limit our spills and problems with the system. It's a pretty lengthy document, but we do need to adopt it and certify that we've done so.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to, any questions for board members?
I would move that we approve and adopt the attached sanitary sewer system management plan.
It's been moved and second. Any public comment on the sanitary sewer system management plan? Okay. If you could state your name for the record, too.
Pardon?
If you could state your name for the record.
Okay, Connie Morrison.
Okay.
There's $188,000 worth of fines, and that's why we have to immediately adopt these regulations. And I'm really upset about the fact that people are having their sewer rates raised. If they're not able to afford them, they don't have a lien put on their property. They have the payment, the bill put onto their property tax, plus a 6% interest rate. And I think this is totally unfair that the public has been paying for this $42 million wastewater treatment plant to find out that it hasn't been made properly. I don't know how to say it, but there's flaws in it, okay? There has been, I think, something like 32 change orders, hundreds of thousands of dollars in change orders on this, and to present it to the public like, oh, we gotta hurry up and rush this through. First of all, what are we rushing through? I mean, there's already been fines of $188,000. Are we rushing through something that is even more problematic? I am, the honeycomb thing that goes on top of it. Is there any other county that has the situation happening? And then Mr. Barnes is going to be retiring at the end of the year, leaving us with this fine, and we're rushing through something. Has anybody else looked over this new plan, and will it work?
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yeah.
I would just like to point out that those are city issues. This plan that I'm presenting today is for the county, just to make certain that we don't develop those issues down the road.
Okay, thanks. Kevin?
You will recall that maybe a couple of months ago, we adopted our wastewater treatment ordinance, and we amended it so it complied, and it was that of the city. Because the city and the county work together here, there is a partnership. But that other aspect of the sewage treatment plan, and that, as Tina said, is a city issue. This is just for a plan that the Water Resources Control Board needs for the management and maintenance of the county portion of this system.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from supervisors? I'll entertain a motion then. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have a motion. Could you pull the vote, please?
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes. We'll go on to item 21, approve a request to continue the public hearing to vacate a portion of the public right-of-way over Surf Sound Court until the July 24th, 2012 Board of Supervisors meeting to allow the parties to execute necessary documents as requested by the Deputy Director of Engineering and Roads.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, let's move to second. Any public comment on this? Okay, Jeremy, could you pull the vote, please?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes. Okay. Item 22, approve and authorize the chair to sign the Orleans Somme Bar Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and we had a presentation at the last meeting on this, and
I think we were just waiting for the approvals, and I think that got taken care of. So I would move to approve.
it's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any public comment on it? Okay, bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 23. Approving the acceptance of offers to dedicate 12 public access easements and adopt a resolution accepting grants of interest in the real property described in Exhibit A of the resolution as requested by the Deputy Director of Building and Planning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A condition of coastal development permits for new development is that landowners who live between the first public road and the sea are required to offer what is known as an irrevocable offer to dedicate of lateral access. The lateral access is for public access for recreational uses, primarily walking, pedestrian type activities. We have required over the last few years approximately 17 of those. The Coastal Commission's Public Access Department has approached us about accepting those offers to dedicate because some of them are approaching the 21-year deadline. In the event that the jurisdiction, the county who has the first right of refusal to accept them chooses not to, then they would make those available to a nonprofit agency, or there's actually state law that allows them to accept those easements. And so what I brought forward today are 12 of those, which would be the, I guess, the oldest.
How big of a hurry are we in?
We're not.
Is there a map that shows these? I kind of wanted to see the map.
No, but what I could do is I could put together a map and return at a future meeting. And if there's anything else that you're interested in, I could also.
I was just
Sure,
curious. I'd just
sure.
like to know where they're at, what they do.
Yeah, the majority of them
And-
are on Gilbert Way, Chrissy Lane. They're pretty much from, say, the Beach subdivision north. There's actually a couple south, too.
And-
Lopez Creek north.
And you said primarily walking.
Yes, I'll
What's-
actually,
What else would be allowed?
I will read exactly what is allowed. It is specifically defined.
Well, and part of the issue for me, I don't agree with the proliferation of all these easements, but that's not what's before us now.
Right, no, I understand.
It's either we're in control
Control
or
or
we're going to
somebody
give it
else.
to some conservancy to be
Yeah.
in control, in which case we really out of control.
Okay, I'll read to you the definition. Passive recreational uses include those activities normally associated with beach use, e.g. walking, swimming, jogging, sunbathing, fishing, surfing. This does not include the use of the access way for organized sports, activities, campfires, or vehicular access for other than emergency or maintenance purposes. Most access ways required to meet the provisions of Section 30212 of the Coastal Act should provide for at least this range of uses unless the topographic constraints, habitat values, or privacy needs warrant more restrictive provisions on the use of the access way.
And actually, you know, I agree with David, you know, what he said. And can you just email me where these accesses are? I don't
yeah,
need to know where they are. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Actually, I put together.
We certainly don't want to give up
Control.
control of those, and we're basically required to do it or we lose it, so.
Yeah, someone's going to accept them.
Yeah,
They're not going to
so,
go away.
If you would just send me a map of that, that's
Okay,
what I would request.
absolutely. I can do
Okay.
that.
I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll move to approve the acceptance of these offers to dedicate for the 12.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved second. Any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. Jeremy, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, moving on to item 24, consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte. Well, actually, let me take the item that was the urgency item up, which is a letter in opposition.
Solar energy?
Letter in opposition, solar energy permits by It was SB 1222. Jay, do you want to give a brief?
Quickly, SB 1222 would have would place a cap on building permit fees on solar residential and commercial systems and require local agencies to justify their reasonable costs and do that in a finding and ordinance for any costs above $400 and a $1,000 cap. Obviously, these projects can be quite large and doesn't necessarily allow for the complete recoupment of the services provided, which is typically how the county government would charge out those fees in relation to building permits and such.
Okay.
Move to send the letter regarding SB 1222 in opposition.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, any other, or going back to item 24, miscellaneous legislative budget matters.
I think Supervisor Finnegan touched on most of the legislative issues that are out there right now with the trailer bills that'll come with the proposed budget bill. Hasn't been voted on. My understanding as of last night was that they could have a vote as early as tomorrow. Like I mentioned, there's over a half inch of trailer bills that need to be reviewed. There are a couple in there that will be of interest to Del Norte County. Some of those will have absolutely no impact on Del Norte County, but one of the key issues that Supervisor Finnegan brought up earlier was the RDA pass-throughs. That could have resulted in about a $200,000 hit to Del Norte County's general fund, which is not something we can absorb at this point. Fortunately, that is out, and we won't have to deal with that one at this point. But we will be reviewing those documents. They came in, like I said, 2 of them last night, and we'll be going through those as part of the budget research that's going to take place for the next couple of months.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go on to, unless someone else, any other legislative budget matters, we'll go on to item 25. Discuss and take action as necessary to modify the 2012-13 fiscal year recommended budgets as presented by the departments. Establish positions in Health and Human Services and Probation and reclassify positions in Child Support Services and Administration as listed. Approve the position list request for wireless device stipends as provided in the adopted wireless device policy. Direct the budget team to continue to research and analyze all other cost-saving options. Approve and adopt the 2012-13 fiscal year recommended budgets as modified, and direct departments that no fixed asset purchase shall be allowed prior to the adoption of the final budget without the Board of Supervisors approval.
Before the board today is the recommended budget, which is statutorily required. And essentially what this will do is give spending authority to begin the fiscal year, at the same time allowing us to sit down, analyze the state budget once it's passed, and also look at our plans that come forward through the departments. If there are deficits in a department, they have been asked to come forward with plans. It's the responsibility of each department to do that, and then we analyze those plans and sit down with the departments and come up with solutions. They began this process, they being the departments and us, the budget team, in April of this year, and there were instructions put out to maintain the net county cost as much as possible, because there are increasing costs that are associated with agreements that obviously are outside of the ability of a department head or department to maintain. Typically those are related to personnel costs. At this point in the budget process, we have received all of the requests. We have had multiple meetings. We've sat down with each department. We have made recommendations for the requested budgets and passed those on now to the Board of Supervisors. There will be some modifications to the 6 recommendations that are before you today, in particular the Health and Human Services positions. There have been some changes. We're going to make those and bring those before the board at the next meeting during the budget section. This budget at this point anticipates the policies and goals of the Board of Supervisors and expenditures that have been made in the past. We very likely will be back to discuss some of those, depending on what happens with the state budget, what revenues are received, and what our year-end materializes to be. Obviously, if there is a negative fund balance, that can affect our bottom line on what we're dealing with at this point. At this point, we have reduced the requested budgets by approximately $1.2 million, and there's still $1.6 million we'll need to deal with over the next 2 months. The primary reductions that have been made are dealing with accrued days, those days at the end of the year that have been accrued. Those have been dropped through the auditor's office and will not count against the budget at this time. We've also reduced budget lines line by line with each department. But service and supply budgets are very tight. We've reduced those to a point where most departments are very frugal in how they approach any type of purchases. The couple of positives that have happened, obviously, I think it was discussed a little bit earlier, has been an increase in federal payment in lieu of taxes by about $50,000, up from 150 to 200. Not nearly enough, but it's a $50,000 positive. There has been also a decrease in the amount that the county pays for joint occupancy at the courthouse. It's been several years ago now, the state acquired the courthouse and required a facility use agreement and a payment. So we have a payment that we pay to the state for them to utilize our courthouse that they now own. There's also a joint occupancy agreement that allows us to pay them for being in the courthouse that we used to own that they now own. So there's a considerable amount that we put out for the state to actually have the use of the courthouse and allow us to stay there. And there was a reduction of about $38,000 in the joint occupancy agreement this year. So there have been a few positives that have come up recently. Also accounting for the Department of Fish and Game payment in lieu of taxes also will occur in this budget. At this point, as I mentioned, we have maintained the pass-throughs to a number of different entities or agencies. That includes the Chamber of Commerce, Klamath Chamber of Commerce, Area 1 on Aging, and that represents economic development and our visitor serving type of uses that the board supports. It also includes some contribution to education and culture, which includes 4-H as well as Danaka. At this point, as I mentioned, we are about $1.61 million in deficit. There are some plans in place to reduce that, and taking into account our year end, we'll see what the actual final number will be that we have to reduce. I believe the board is aware of, and I'll reiterate it, there have been concessions with some employees, not all of the associations, but the elected, appointed, assistants, confidential, and miscellaneous employees have all given up concessions of about 4%, either through contributions to the health fund or through furloughs. And those are in this budget also. At this point, we have not received or not come to an agreement with the Sheriff Employees Association, and so the 24-hour facilities are also not taking those types of concessions at this point. One of the bigger issues that we face right now is I guess an unintended consequence of AB 109, which is the realignment of public safety. There was a loss last year of approximately $450,000 at the jail. It was money that was part of the in-custody drug treatment program, which offset jail costs. This year, the loss of that funding represents about $680,000. Obviously, that's a significant portion of what our deficit is right now, and we will have to find a solution for that before the final budget. By law, the final budget has to be passed by October 2nd. There's a resolution of the Board of Supervisors that allows it to be extended past the June 30th date, but we do have to have spending authority, and that's why we are here today with the recommended budget. So based on the recommendations, and I'll reiterate the ones that the chairman previously read, it would be to discuss and take action as necessary to modify the 2012-2013 fiscal year recommended budgets as presented by departments. Number 2 will be modified to say establish positions in the probation department and reclassify positions in child support services and administration as listed in attachment A, and we will return with the health and human services changes. 3, approve the position list request for wireless device stipends as provided in the adopted wireless device policy. 4, direct the budget team to continue to research and analyze all other cost savings options. 5, approve and adopt the 2012-2013 fiscal year recommended budgets as modified. And 6, direct departments that no fixed asset purchases shall be allowed prior to the adoption of the final budget without Board of Supervisors approval. As I mentioned, essentially this will give us the spending authority, and the county is liquid to proceed through the final budget. If there are any questions, the auditor controller's here, the assistant county administrative officer's here, our personnel manager's here, and I'm here. That is the budget team at this point.
Personnel's here?
I guess I am here.
Yeah, I guess you are, huh?
I thought they were sitting
I'm glad
behind
we
me.
came to that conclusion.
They should be here.
Were you here at the beginning of the meeting, too?
I was.
Okay, just checking. Any questions, supervisors?
How do we have a negative balance in the Title III Forest Reserve?
The negative balance specifically in the, which line do you
Well, I
have?
just saw a net 152-252. Which page?
It's on the first page, isn't it?
In attachment C?
Yeah, whatever. I don't. Yeah, attachment C, but I don't know page numbers.
I'll refer to the auditor controller to that one.
I don't see it. 1, 2, 3.
You got it, Cliff?
Page 4, I guess.
It's on the spreadsheet. So that's the beginning.
The negative balance there reflects current fund balance of those monies we've been holding, and they have to be returned by the end of December of this next year. So to show that expense to zero out that fund balance when we return those funds.
Okay. We return the funds to where?
Department of Agriculture. Through the Forest Service monies. Only part of them are returned. The vast majority, well, not the vast majority, but the 2/3 of those funds we have are ours to keep. However, there are the new funds that are required to be returned by September, I believe, of this next year.
Okay, you got me totally confused. So this isn't a matter that we've spent more than...
No. There were, when the Secure Rural Schools first came into existence, the first round was a 5-year ending in 2008 or 2007. Then in 2008 it was reinstated till 2011. The second reinstatement, however, had different guidelines for it. The guidelines were so strict that it was difficult for us to spend the money. And we took our money, our Title III funds, and gave them back to the RAC committee to be able to use them because they weren't as restricted as counties were.
Right.
Now we have two different accounts, two different balances, and the balance for the new funds has to be, the unspent funds has to be returned, while the balance from the old funds is still ours. We keep that forever.
So I'm still curious as to why it shows a negative number there, I guess. Are we showing a positive number someplace else?
Yes, we have a positive number in the fund balance, which isn't reflected in your budget. That's
Okay.
money's been collected over the years. We have to show that expenditure coming out in the budget.
So that number's going to be what we end up with. We're going to have a fund balance at some point that's...
They should match that figure, and then it should zero
Okay.
out.
All right. Never mind.
Any other questions?
What does it translate in bodies at this point?
That is a very sticky questions because it really depends on where the deficits are and what the year end ends up. If you just strictly took 1.6 million and said how many positions, we'd also have to attribute what are the salaries and what positions. So I hesitate to put any number on bodies at this point because I'd really like to see what we have once the year end comes in before we establish what the plans will end up looking like. Because we do have plans that are associated that would affect those departments and could result in cuts of personnel. But if, in fact, the revenue is seen through the state budget or some unrealized revenue, because that does happen, where the state will send in revenue that they may not have paid in the past, does show up at the end of the year, which is amazing to most people, but it is to me. I would really love to see that also. But I think it's preliminary to talk about just bodies.
And we're working on the medical.
Yes, the health fund is also something we were working on.
So the CSA assessment district, is that the same issue? There's a fund balance someplace? Okay.
So I'll move the recommendations 1 through 6.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? No. Okay, seeing no public comment on the approved, I'll bring it back to the board. Any other comments or? Yeah, it's
Now the
ugly.
work begins.
It's ugly, and I'm hoping as we do go into negotiations that the different entities, and I appreciate the appointed, the electeds, the miscellaneous, and other entities that have stepped forward with concessions. There has to be a realistic footing there that everyone understands cuts are coming, and the only alternative is for everyone to give up a little. Otherwise, people lose their jobs, and that's not the direction we want to go. And I hope the different representative unions understand the impact of they have to be willing to do, come forward with concessions just so people can retain jobs. Because the reality is there's only a limited amount of money and it's shrunk. So
I think that one of the main points, and it's being made all across California and all across the nation, is that there are diminishing revenues. Whether you had a boom in your housing and now you have reductions in property taxes, or not as effective or as big of effect in Del Norte County regarding sales tax, but there is very much a limited revenue sources at this time. And people are struggling to balance these budgets everywhere. It was curious to see a statement made through Tuolumne County, which almost reflects our budget to a T. The numbers are a little bit different, but the issues are identical. And I think you'll find that throughout California. I've seen some others through counties that have a lot better economic bases that are not having these issues and are not cutting. We have had this issue for a number of years, and the board has been proactive in dealing with these. We're trying to maintain the services at a level that doesn't affect the constituents, and trying to maintain that with diminishing revenue is very difficult.
Well, and I think there has to be an understanding of the public's, and if you're not involved in county government on a regular basis, there's not an understanding that the county's been cut to the bare bone. There are not people to backfill, which you have in other situations. If someone's out sick, whatever the case is, we don't have that extra person to step in to fulfill that role. That's how cut to the bone they are. So there's two parts I see in the budget going forward also, that the willingness to share the pain, which would make the cuts across the board not be as deep, and people would be able to retain jobs as well. But also, I'd like to see some revenue generation. And I don't see that coming out of the Treasury Department right now. In fact, I see negative from the previous year. And I know there is the flexibility of other investments out there that can be used. So that, to me, that needs to be addressed. As well as, I don't think the board has seen a monthly report on the investment report to see what can be done. So, all right. Any other comments, questions?
I'll just toss in there that throughout the years that I've sat here, we've had these tough times and we've figured it out. We have lost people. In fact, administration, I think, has lost a number of people over the years. I think Jay said it was 5?
4 to date over the last 4 years.
4 out of the last 4 years, and that we are cutting to the bone. But I think that the teamwork of the staff to the budget, you guys that have been working on this, and the negotiations, we end up doing fairly well. And we can be really happy we're not Stockton right now. So I think we're okay.
Yes,
We're gonna
Stockton
make
has issues. You know, I do appreciate everybody's involvement in this. Obviously, we don't always agree when we go through these budget meetings. And ultimately, the goal of this budget team is to present a balanced budget. It's required by law. So we're not always on the same page, but I think in the majority of the cases, we're working towards the same goal, and I do appreciate that from the department heads and the staff that work on it.
Okay. All right, Jaren, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Nuclear?
Yes.
Supervisor Henningsen?
Yes.
Supervisor Finnegan?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes. Okay. And that will adjourn the meeting.
12.
Number 12.
Okay. Oh, item 12, that's right. Did it get rewarded?
I can give you some intent. Do you have an intent?
So I came up with something, and maybe you have something.
I didn't know the Senate resolution number. Is there?
Yes, it's SR 32.
I started out with, whereas the Senate Resolution SR 32 identifies the importance of early child care and education of California's children, and considering the struggle of the California budget, we request that whenever possible, early childhood education programs be protected. And then it moves into, whereas high-quality early learning programs for low-income children significantly narrow the achievement gap, reduce high school dropout rate, decrease the cost of special education, welfare, and that entire section there. And then skipping down to the next whereas, where it is whereas, skipping the next, striking the next one and moving it to whereas every dollar invested in early child care education helps develop capable and productive citizens, ... The next whereas would read, whereas Del Norte County Board of Supervisors supports the legislative version of the budget that passed on June 15, 2012 in AB 1464 and the Senate resolution. Now therefore be it resolved, the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors adopt this resolutions in support of child development programs and urge the governor to sign AB 1464.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So
Thank
moved.
you.
What's the title of that?
That's another one that I had. I had what I put down as the title is Support of Senate Resolution SR 32 and Early Child Care Education Development Programs and support of the legislative budget AB 1464.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Great.
It's moved second. Any public comment?
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll get that to you, Jeremy.
Hey, Dan.
We'll go over it together.
Dan. You might take this as bottom.
That helps. Yeah, I took out all delicate, and I even took out urge.
See the tabs at the bottom of the screen?
I know.